Hey folks, welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio, where we're talking exclusively about the Beatles with all kinds of people in the Beatles universe, musicians, authors, podcasters, hosts of radio shows on the Beatles, and I'm getting such a kick out of doing this with all of my interviews here. This time out, another special guest, it's Ed Mottau. And those of you who are familiar with this album, Walls and Bridges from John Lennon, Ed played acoustic guitar on most of the tracks on here, and he also played on John's rock and roll album. And we're going to talk about those two albums and talk about his history. And there's a lot there to talk about where Paul Stookey, also known as Noel Paul Stookey, is concerned. And we welcome Ed to the channel. Welcome to Ken Michaels Radio.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Before we start, because sometimes I have a tendency to forget, just want to thank Jay Bergen for hooking us up together. Jay was a guest on my show a few interviews back. He was the defense attorney that represented John in the copyright infringement case with Morris Levy, which we'll also talk a little bit about here in the interview. But his new book is excellent if you haven't gotten it yet. Lennon, the Mobster, and the Lawyer, Jay Bergen. Thanks, Jay, for getting us together. Let's start by talking about your very beginnings in music. Who were the artists that you listened to and how you became involved as a musician?
Well, when I got hooked on playing the guitar when I was about 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it just grabbed me. Music just grabbed me. I lived in just south of Boston then. That's where I grew up. And so I got involved in the Boston scene. I was constantly going to the coffee houses there, listening to people like Tom Rush,
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Washington, Joan Baez. And I also became a big fan of the Kingston Trio. I don't know if you remember them.
I do.
Yeah. And I became very friendly with them. And I was at one of their concerts one night at Symphony Hall in Boston. And I went backstage after the show and they said, "Hey, we're going to hear this new group. Why don't you come with us over at the Hotel Bradford,
Mm-hmm.
a room called Storyville?" So I went over with them and it was this trio up on the stage. These two guys with goatees and a blonde woman. And it was Peter, Paul, and Mary. And us and the waiters were the only people in the room. I think it was their last set of the night. And so that's when I first met them. That was like early in 1962.
Okay.
And the next summer, that summer, I was still in high school when I met them. And I had a group in high school called the Islanders. And we used to play all at the local ski areas around New England and stuff. And we had this booking agent in Boston, and they decided they were going to open up a nightclub in Hyannis, Massachusetts on the Cape.
Yeah.
So they did that, and they rented a house for all the different musicians to stay at the house. So the trio that I was in, one guy was starting Harvard in the fall. The other guy was going to Notre Dame, and their parents didn't want them to spend the summer on the Cape. So I did it by myself, and I was the opening act for all of these people.
Wow.
Dave Gard and the Whiskey Hill Singers, Peter, Paul, and Mary, the Journeymen, just a ton of people. And so that's when I became friendly with Noel Stookey. And that fall, after the place closed down for the summer, that fall, one of the there was two guys that were kind of traveling around the country then, and they came to the Cape, and they were called the Cradlers. It was Joe Hutchinson and Eric Anderson.
Hmm.
And so Joe and I hooked up. They weren't going to continue. We hooked up in I think it was Chicago in the fall, and then we went on to California and hung out there for most of the winter. And Peter, Paul, and Mary were playing at the Hollywood Bowl. So we went over, and Noel met us at the gate. I had called him, and so we got together and hung out. And he said, "Hey, you guys, I'd like you to record this song that I wrote." He said, "When I get back to New York, maybe you'll come down and record it."
Mm-hmm.
So we did. It was a song that he had written about his wife called "Come On, Betty Home."
Okay.
And we recorded it. It was released on Spector Records.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And
a pretty good label right there.
yeah, that was Deanne Warwick was on that label, and
BJ Thomas.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then we started. Noel was kind of like our manager. He became like our manager, and he set us up with a booking agency, and we started working all over the country. Started doing gigs all over the country. And we finally went back to Boston, and we had played in New York a lot. We played a lot at the Gaslight Cafe. That's where I met a lot of people. I met John Sebastian, who played on some records with me, and Felix Pappalardi. He's the guy that did all the Cream records and Youngbloods. And we became good friends, and he used to come and sit in with us and play guitar. So I got a call from Felix. He had started this company with a guy by the name of Bud Prager, publishing company and management company. And he wanted to bring his new partner up to Boston to hear us. In the meantime, we had added a drummer, a guy by the name of Norman Smart from Ohio, and we met him when we were in Ohio playing at a club.
Mm-hmm.
And a good friend of mine by the name of Frank Weber ran the place, and he came to the Gaslight to hear us, and then he brought us out there. Anyway, so we got a bass player and a drummer from Ohio to come to Boston and join us. And then we signed a contract with Atlantic Records.
Wow.
Through Felix, and we named the band Beau Grumpus. And
that name.
Yeah, so we recorded an album for Atlantic Records, and then as a group we did a couple of years later we did one for oh God, I can't even remember the name of the label now.
How did you get the name? How did you get the name?
Beau Grumpus?
Yeah.
Felix's girlfriend came up with the name.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she thought we were kind of like grumpy guys, so she called us Beau Grumpus.
Did that first album get any decent airplay?
I think it did. Yeah, it got some decent airplay, and we did a bunch of gigs for a while, and then there was some kind of a conflict with Felix's partner, and then we moved to another label, a smaller label. I can't even remember the name of it now.
Now, as you're working with this band, was it still more or less kind of folk oriented?
Yeah, folk rock. Yeah,
Okay.
It was like a folk rock group. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we finished that album, and then a few months later we decided to disband. So I was living in New York City then. We had all moved down to New York to do this album, and just working with people in Greenwich Village. And then I met an old friend on the street, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm producing Noel Stookey's new album." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, why don't you come on up to the studio?" They were at the record plant.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up and saw Noel again. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And we hugged and said hello and everything. And so I hung around for the day, and he asked me to join Jim Mason in helping to produce this new album. This was called the Paul Land album.
Right.
That's the album that had the wedding song on it.
Sure.
And so we did that. And then I did a solo album with for MCA Records in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And Noel Stookey produced it.
He returned the favor.
Yeah, he returned the favor. And actually, he was the one that got me the deal. So so we did that. And then I produced another album for him. It was a live concert album that we did at Carnegie Hall.
Okay.
That I also played on and produced. And then we just, we've been tight, close friends all this time. So since high school, like 61 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
When you first met Peter, Paul, and Mary in Boston,
Yeah.
that was 1962.
Yeah.
So that was right at the time when they were about to burst.
Oh yeah, it was their second gig. It was only their second gig.
Huh.
Yeah.
This is before they had the record contract?
Oh no, they had the record contract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And they just took off. And later on, I found out that Peter, Paul, and Mary's first album sold more albums than all of the Kingston trios combined.
Hmm.
And the Kingston trio were huge. They were a big band,
I know.
Yeah.
I was brought up on Peter, Paul, and Mary as a little kid.
Oh yeah.
My mom loved them.
Yeah.
And in particular, their third album, In the Wind.
Uh-huh.
I would say that next to any Beatles album or solo Beatles album, it ranks way up there of the most played albums in my whole life.
Yeah.
I played that album hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And I listened to their other stuff too, up through the late 60s with Day Is Done and Leaving on a Jet Plane and those songs.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I always treasured them, and I always loved their voices, their singing, their harmonies. They were such experts at their craft.
Oh, they were fantastic at their craft, and they were also very political too.
Sure.
That group really tried to make a difference. They really did.
My future wife got to see them in concert in the 60s, and she was also, going to anti-war rallies too. And she was a part of that I didn't get to see Peter, Paul, and Mary in concert till, probably the last 10 years while Mary was still alive. But I'm certainly glad that I got to see them.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing, when I was, Joe Hutchins and I were a duo, we were playing at the Gaslight, and Bob Dylan came in one night. We used to go out in the little tiny kitchen to have coffee in between sets. And he came in and asked if he could borrow a guitar. He says, I want you to hear this new song I just wrote. It's All Over Now, Baby Blue.
Right.
So we were the first people on the planet to ever hear that tune.
That's sweet.
It was sweet. Yeah.
I tell you, as everyone knows, I love the Beatles more than any other artist on the planet. But when people say that the music scene was kind of boring before the Beatles came along, you look at what was going on, especially in the early part of the 60s with folk rock.
Oh yeah. Folk music was huge. Yeah. And it was, it was unbelievable. It's an unbelievable scene, hanging around in the Village. At the Gas, I used to work with Joni Mitchell, Chuck and Joni Mitchell, so many different artists. It was just unbelievable. Nobody was famous then.
Right.
So, Dylan was starting to get famous. Peter, Paul, and Mary were famous. But there were so many people that, would just kind of get together, and John Sebastian would come in and play harp on some tunes. And you know, and I met this guy, Eric Jacobson, who asked Joe Hutchinson and I to do some background singing on some tunes that he had written for demos, and we did that. And he said, "Do you know any good singers?" I said, "Yeah, I know this guy in Boston." He said, "Have him get in touch with me." That was Tim Hardin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when Tim Hardin took off right there. Yeah. So it was like a community. It was a real community.
Right.
Like that part of the 60s. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
Right.
In the mid 60s, all throughout the 60s, you know, everybody just kind of hung out and, you know, played together and sang together, and it was a wonderful scene. Not like the pop 60s scene, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Fabian and all those kind of 50s, late 50s and 60s people.
Okay.
It was a real movement. It was huge, and it was all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Huge folk movement in LA when I was out there. I mean, Boston and New York were huge. I mean, they produced a lot of people, you know.
If I had been a little bit older, I probably would have been hanging out in Greenwich Village.
I'm sure you would have. I used to meet Arlo Guthrie Sunday afternoons in Washington Square. We'd get together and play. Then we'd go to his house and he'd sit at the piano and play some more and hang out. So yeah, they were good times. They were a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
And everybody was supportive of each other.
Everybody was supportive. It was terrific.
Yeah.
It really was great.
All right. So what led you to working with John Lennon?
I was in the studio, I believe it was on the One Night Stand album, the Carnegie Hall album of Noel Stookey's.
Okay.
And one of the engineers came in and said, John Lennon has booked some studio time here for tomorrow night. He said, and he's looking for an acoustic guitar player. He said, I recommended you. Are you interested? I said, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't about to turn that down, you know. Yeah. So we met, and he was producing this street singer by the name of David Peel.
Sure.
So I worked on that album. I played acoustic guitar on that album. And then he called me again to play on the Walls and Bridges album. And then he called me back to do the rock and roll album. So I worked with him from 1971 to 1975. And we did lots of gigs too. We did a gig in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we did a gig at the Apollo Theater in New York for the Attica State benefit for the women that had lost their husbands during the riots.
Right.
And it was just amazing. Like, we were the only white people in the theater. And John started singing Imagine, and all the women in the front rows were crying. They were just weeping. It was very, very moving, very moving.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that you were at the John Sinclair rally too.
Yes, I was at the John Sinclair rally. Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
The thing that I remember most about that is we had to go up this long ramp, and there was so many photographers shooting cameras with flash bulbs. I couldn't see. I said, John, I can't see. He says, hold on to the back of my coat. So I'm hanging on to his collar going up there, and it was good. It was very powerful. We followed Stevie Wonder on stage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, I would have loved to have gone to that show, not just because of John, but because of Stevie, and Bob Seger was there too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just for that lineup alone. Yeah. So when you listen to the performance of John Sinclair and Was it Luck of the Irish too that you did?
Yeah, yeah, The Luck of the Irish and that tune, It Ain't Fair, John Sinclair in the Stir. We did that and one or two other things. I can't remember exactly what they were. And so after that, after we did the rock and roll album, well, let me say how that happened. He called me to come down to New York and work on this album. And this guy by the name of Morris Levy picked this up. He's in the book that you're reading now.
Right.
And we're riding up to his farmhouse in upstate New York. It was me, John, and Maypang. And we're riding up there, and John's looking for whatever gets you through the night on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, can you imagine turning the dial looking for your own tunes on the radio? So Eleanor Rigby came on.
Okay.
I knew that was a McCartney song. I said, when did Paul write that song? He said he had been listening to lots of Vivaldi when he wrote that song. So he was into classical music. Well, they all were to some extent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, we're up to Morris's farm, and we were supposedly all up there to rehearse for the rock and roll album. Well, everybody knew the tunes from the time we were like young teenagers, you know. Jesse Ed Davis came, Klaus Bormann, you know, Jim Keltner, the regular crew.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do much rehearsing. There's a lot of crap games going on and a lot of drinking, but not much rehearsing. So then we went back into the studio and recorded it. And
did you speak to Morris Levy much?
Oh yeah. I was up. I'm an early riser. I've been a carpenter all my life too. So I'm up early in the morning, and Morris was up. He gave me a tour of his farm. So that was about a 2-hour thing. I couldn't believe the place. The size of the place was unbelievable. And, you know, I was surprised when this whole thing was all said and done that I was called to testify in that trial for John.
Mm-hmm.
And I had said to the judge, you know, Morris Levy's attorney was cross-examining me, and he said, you know, he said, are you aware of the fact that the Rolling Stones recorded an album on cassette tape? And I said, it must have been pretty poor quality.
Yeah.
Then it's when I said to the judge, Your Honor, I said, can I tell you what the procedure is, the normal procedure for making an album to recording? He said, I wish you would. So I spent some time explaining that. Anyway, the lawsuit was for $40 million, and Morris lost. So I was happy about that. So
John must have been in total shock that Morris went to this extreme.
Oh, he was angry too. He was just beside himself. He couldn't believe it, you know. And Morris was famous. I mean, Morris owned all Chuck Berry's music. The way that lawsuit came down was for that line in the Beatles song "Come Together," you know, "Here Come Old Flat Top."
Right.
So that's definitely
taken from "You Can't Catch Me."
Yeah, from Chuck Berry tune. Yeah, which Morris owned all of Chuck Berry's publishing, and a lot of other people's too. So
I was wondering about that because, you know, they had John agreed to record 3 of Morris Levy's songs.
Right.
Since Sweet Little 16 was one of those songs on the album, I didn't see that listed under the same publishing company, Big Seven. So I didn't think Morris owned that.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe he didn't own that particular song.
Right.
But anyway, it was wonderful working with John Lennon. He was a very kind and generous person. He really was. Jesse Ed Davis came to the studio, I forget at what period, and he had a trunk of guitars with him from LA.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had stole the trunk with all his guitars in it. And John said to him, go up to Manny's music. And he said, get what you need and just put it on my tab.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, he was a sweet guy. And I used to go up to the Dakota a lot and would sit around and play guitars. And he had one of the Everly Brothers, big Gibsons that he used to play.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so we used to hang out, and we had a lot of fun. It was a great time working with him. A lot of fun, and I learned some things about other musicians that I never knew, like Klaus Vormann, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the studio early one day, and I walk in, and he's sitting at the piano playing Scott Joplin rags perfectly. I mean, it just blew me away. So I got my guitar out and we started playing, because I loved ragtime music. I was a big fan of Jim Kweskin's. He was also a friend of mine in Boston. And but I couldn't believe it. I thought, he played bass, but basically he was really an artist,
Yeah.
And when I heard him playing these piano rags, I just couldn't, it blew me away. Yeah.
This other side of him. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about the Walls and Bridges sessions. Did John know when he went into the studio what he wanted from all the musicians, or were there times when they added their own input, their own ideas?
Yeah, I think basically what we did is we learned the tunes. He was in the vocal booth
Mm-hmm.
and playing rhythm guitar, and we all kind of learned the tunes, and then we just started weeding out. I mean, the arrangements came together beautifully. He didn't have a whole lot of specifics that he wanted. I mean, we followed him.
Mm-hmm.
With all of his embellishments and everything, the way he, wrote the tunes.
Right.
But it just worked out. The band just worked out beautifully. Everybody played great together.
So he kind of knew exactly what he wanted on each song?
Yeah.
When I think of acoustic guitar on Walls and Bridges,
Yeah.
I immediately think of Bless You.
Oh, yeah.
You hear it so well.
Yeah.
You look on the album's credits and it's you and John.
What's that?
You look at the album's credits and it
Yeah.
lists you and John.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, were there times when you were playing acoustic alone? Like when you're hearing the strumming on Bless You, was that you or is that John or both of you?
I'm doing the picking. I'm doing all the finger picking.
Okay.
Yeah. See, he was just playing chords. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's a song that stands out in my mind from hearing the acoustic guitar, especially the introduction and everything. And also Steel and Glass.
Yeah.
The way Steel and Glass starts. Is that you or is that John?
That's me.
That's you. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's strumming.
Yeah, well, it's finger picking. It's like, I'm a folkie. He said to me one time, "Hey Ed, can you play with a normal pick?" I said, "No, I can't." I said, "I'm a finger picker, John." I said, "I can play rhythm fine, but it's easier for me to play with my two fingers and my thumb rather than a flat pick playing those notes." So anyway, he really liked what I played. When we finished the Walls and Bridges album, and then we started working on the rock and roll album, he thanked me when I came back to see him.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Thank you." He said, "You were really there on that album." I appreciated that. So he was great to work with.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great sense of humor, and he would say things like, "All right, lads, no drinking. until we get something on tape. Then Jim Keltner would say to me, ask him if we can have just a little light white wine. So, and another story, when we were during the trial with Morris Levy, we're out to lunch, and this little restaurant called Sloppy Louie's in downtown.
Mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
I wish it still existed.
Yeah. So we're down there, and this Wall Street guy comes walking up to our table, and he looks at John. He says, "Hey," he said, "you're John Lennon, aren't you?" And John looks and says, "No, I wish I was." I mean, he had a great sense of humor. He did some hysterical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like when Elton John arrived on the sessions?
I don't think I was there. I wasn't there that night. We had all the basic tracks were done
Oh,
by the time Elton came around to do his vocals.
but he
Yeah.
had his piano part too that he had to do.
Yeah.
Because there are earlier takes of Whatever Gets You Through the Night, and it's a very different arrangement. It's much.
Oh, yeah.
So, I was wondering how much of the change in the arrangement was really due to Elton's ideas.
I know, it could have been, but I was really surprised when I heard the final product, all the horns and strings and everything. I mean, the sound was huge, just huge. That's when I said, bye-bye acoustic guitar. I can't hear you anymore.
Now he
But
really
no, I can hear it. It pokes through it in a lot of places.
Yeah. It brought a lot of life to the song, but then there's a certain, I don't know, there's a certain charm to those early recordings too.
Oh,
It
yeah.
does work with that arrangement as well.
Yeah.
So I guess you weren't there as well for Surprise, Surprise.
Yes, I was there for that. Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Anything you remember about that session?
Nothing in particular.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also a long time ago too, so.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Did you stay for the overdubbing of all the orchestrations on the album?
Oh, no. None of the basic track guys were there for that.
Okay.
That was all after the fact. Yeah.
So that must have been quite an experience when you heard the finished product of some of these songs.
Oh, yeah. It was
Number 9 Dream.
I couldn't believe how the orchestration and the horn sections and, the harmonies that he was singing with himself. And it was like, it was huge.
Uh-huh.
The sound was absolutely huge compared to what the basic tracks were,
Yeah. I heard that Kenny Asher had a lot to do with that for the
Oh, yeah. Kenny Asher's a great player. Great player. Yeah.
He's one of my earliest interviews.
Oh, yeah?
Actually, I'd like to talk to him again after all these.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in fact, great songwriter, as you well know.
Yeah.
With stuff he's written with Paul Williams.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you listen to Number 9 Dream, what a marvelous, not only great song, but the production on that, it's such a full sound.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
And in particular, a favorite of mine is Scared.
Yeah.
And all the orchestration, the sound of the wolf at the very beginning, and
Yeah, that was one of my favorite tracks too, was Scared. Yeah.
Any other memories you want to share about those sessions? Is there any song in particular that is a favorite of yours, or that you watched develop that you really enjoyed, maybe more so than the others?
Well, I loved Whatever Gets You Through the Night.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great tune to play on. And Number 9 Dream. Yeah. Those are my two favorite tunes on the record.
Were you there when Julian showed up and they did that little take of Yaya? Actually, you're not on the recording, but I didn't know if maybe you witnessed it or anything.
No, I don't remember that particular night, but Julian was around a few times while we were in the studio.
Hmm.
He was just a little kid then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything you observed about, father and son there together?
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah. And because I have a son who's about the same age as Julian.
Hmm.
And yeah, he was a cute kid. And have you heard his version of Imagine that he did for Ukraine?
Sure. It's
It's
beautiful.
great. Yeah, beautiful. He sounds so much like his dad. It's unbelievable on a lot of his recordings.
I have all of his albums.
Yeah.
He's a tremendous songwriter and highly underrated.
Oh yeah.
And you can tell that he's a perfectionist, and everything has to be just right.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not a big lyrics person, he
Yeah.
spends a lot of time on his lyrics.
Yeah.
Melodies are very well done. His
Yeah.
arrangement. He has a great mind for everything, but he takes his
Yeah.
time with everything that he does.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And once you get to study Julian, he's done so many different things. He's gotten into photography. He does children's books.
Oh, does he? I
Uh,
didn't
yeah.
know that. Wow.
He's very big on the environment and teaching young kids about clean air and clean water, and
Oh, that's
what his books
fantastic.
are all about.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah. He also produced a documentary for Netflix called Kiss the Ground.
Uh-huh.
Also environmentally, in that
Wow.
direction. And Woody Harrelson narrated it. And he's got his hands in so many different things. He's really extremely talented.
Wow, that's great.
So
Yeah.
is Sean too, but
One thing John would do during the recording sessions, the basic tracks would finish the tune and then he'd say, anybody got any secrets? Like, did anybody make a mistake that they want to tell me about now? So he was funny like that, anybody got any secrets? I enjoyed myself working with him. It was terrific. It really was great.
I'm sure he did whatever he could to make it all fun at the same time.
Oh, he did. And then some of the, like Jim Keltner, you never had to worry about where one was with Jim Keltner playing drums. I mean, he's the best,
Speaking of which, the song "What You Got," which is one of my favorites of
Oh yeah.
solo records, I know that is a favorite of Jim Keltner's because he's very proud of his drumming, rightfully so, on that song.
Yeah.
Any memories that you have of that particular song, or?
Oh yeah, I love that tune. That was great. Yeah, you don't know what you got until you lose it. Yeah, that was a great song. Have you interviewed Jim Keltner?
No, I certainly would love to. He's at the top of my list.
Yeah.
So maybe someday that'll happen.
Yeah, because he did a little
big hero
work with Harrison too.
Oh, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Great friends with Ringo.
Yeah.
They're lightning and thunder.
Yeah.
But,
I know.
Ringo refers to them as. So yeah, but What You Got is another great, very, very much R&B oriented.
Uh-huh.
I know John said that he was influenced by the OJs,
Yeah.
that song, and For the Love of Money, their hit, that guitar riff. It's kind of based on what you hear in that song. So yeah, I mean, there's only a few songs on Walls and Bridges that you don't play on. At least, as long as the credits are accurate.
Right.
Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out, which is a great song.
Yeah.
Beef Jerky is another, and that recording of Ya.
Yeah.
What is it like to know that you actually played on a #1 single? Whatever gets you through the night.
Great. Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. It's wonderful when I'm driving around and I turn on the radio and there it is. I was listening to Scared the other day. I'm scared and listening to my guitar playing. The mixes were nice mixes.
Yeah.
That was Shelly Yakis, my friend Shelly Yakis,
Okay.
who mixed that.
I was friends with Dennis Ferrante.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, I've interviewed him several times.
Dennis sang on my solo album.
Really?
Yeah. He
Okay.
sang backup on one tune. Yeah. Yeah.
He's a favorite interview of mine, and of course we lost him several years ago. but very outspoken guy
Yeah,
and very particular about what he wanted.
yeah,
Came to producing and mixing. So
yeah,
yeah, very interesting talking to him and the
yeah.
stuff he shared with me. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, have you ever interviewed Shelley Yakis?
nope.
Oh, that would be a good one for you. I can try and get in touch if you want.
Please do. There's plenty
Yeah.
of room on this channel.
Okay.
Anyone who's ever worked with a Beatle,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to talk to.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, this is from the heart. Walls and Bridges is just about my favorite Lennon album. That Mind Games, I think
Yeah.
Mind Games is a very underrated album.
Yeah.
But you know, and the production, apart from the I love the songs. It's produced so well all
Oh
through.
yeah.
It blows my mind, the sound on that record.
Yeah.
And
I think most of that is Lennon when he's sitting there with the engineer. I want this. I want that. Make it bigger sound. Let's add some more echo here. Change the EQ over here. Do whatever. That's all of his experience making Beatle records with George Martin.
hmm,
You know.
you learn from the master.
Oh, absolutely. Which I mean, some of those Beatle records were just incredible.
No,
The production was just amazing.
you don't have to convince me.
Yeah.
um, let's talk about what you remember about the rock and roll sessions, because you didn't play on the sessions with Phil Spector in LA. It was just New York, right?
Just New York. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were done fairly quickly.
I think we were a week, a little more than a week, maybe, to get it all done. Yeah. It went pretty smoothly. It really did.
Hmm.
Everybody kind of, everybody was just plugged in and we learned the tunes, learned the structure of the tunes, and then just played,
Hmm.
Jesse Ed Davis was great on the Walls and Bridges album. It was just,
Yeah. And yeah, I was thinking, because we're talking about rock and roll, Jesse Ed Davis is the one who does the lead guitar part on Stand By Me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a little kid growing up, when I heard Stand By Me, I thought it sounded so much like George Harrison.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
guitar
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But if you want to talk about the other musicians a little bit more on Walls and Bridges, some memories that you might have about Jesse in particular. I know you mentioned Klaus on the piano, which was nice.
Oh yeah.
Some people like Arthur Jenkins, it's a name to me because I see it in the credits, but
Yeah, he was the percussionist. He's gone now, I guess. He was fabulous. I mean, he brought so much gear with him to the studio. It was unbelievable. We used to call them toys.
uh-huh.
So many toys, and he was just he was right in there with Keltner. Man, they were just cooking like crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jim would do, he was like, it's if he didn't like the sound of the snare, he'd like tape his wallet to the snare drum to deaden it.
Uh-huh.
He had all kinds of little tricks,
That just reminds me of, the Beatle days.
Yeah.
They did to dampen the sound of
Yeah.
drums, whether it's putting a towel inside a bass drum or
Exactly.
a cigarette pack on top of a snare drum, doing little things like that. So
yeah,
he had
exactly. And they were just just the studio drums. He didn't bring drums with him. He would bring a couple of cymbals with him to the sessions.
Uh-huh.
His favorite cymbals, but the set of drums were just studio drums. So he made them sound incredible.
Sometimes drummers are so particular about what drum set they're going to use and who the manufacturer is and all that.
Yeah.
So he wasn't fussy in this case?
Oh, no, not at all. Whatever was in front of him, he made work. He'd tune up the tom-toms, and tune up the snare drum.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's a little too bright. Put some tape on it, tape his wallet to the snare drum. No, he was talk about a pro.
Uh-huh.
He is just incredible. Yeah.
Got such a long history, not
Yeah.
just with the solo Beatles, but all the other artists he's worked with. And
Oh,
just to be able to say that you drummed for John Lennon, George Harrison, you double drummed with Ringo.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you helped out with the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My God.
And, Keltner was Ringo's favorite drummer. Ringo loved Keltner. No, you
Mhm.
said that earlier, and that's true, A
Well,
lot of those sessions, the Stones were at a lot of those sessions on Walls and Bridges,
really?
especially Jagger. Yeah, they would come by all the time and hang out. Yeah.
I didn't know. I know
Yeah.
that John said that he thought that Miss You, that the Stones were copying Bless You, which I can't hear in my head, but
Right.
that's John.
Right. Yeah.
What about Nicky Hopkins?
Oh, he was just a giant, He'd sit down at that piano. He was as skinny as my little finger.
Uh-huh.
Every time we'd be sending out for food, he'd say, "Joan, would you please get me a cheese sandwich and a cup of tea?" That's all he ate the whole time. Cheese sandwiches and tea. But when he sat at that piano, he became 10 feet tall. He was just a marvelous player.
Yeah.
Just great.
The more you learn about him, the more you appreciate him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He added so much to
Good.
everybody's recordings.
Yeah.
And Beatle fans know he played on Revolution, but there are certain solo recordings like Jealous Guy, or one of my favorite George Harrison songs is The Light That Has Lighted the World. It's very simple, but just right. Piano solo, and he just had that feel. He knew exactly what was necessary and what worked.
Yeah.
So, if I could have ever attended these sessions, as much as I'd probably be glued to John,
Yeah.
I'd be looking at these other musicians too, and
Oh, yeah.
we're just right.
Yeah. All the musicians on those dates were just top notch, We just all worked together beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I'm very grateful for having that experience working with John.
Yeah.
That was
As a musician, Ken Asher, anything you remember about working with him?
just the fact that he was an excellent piano player.
Mhm.
And he would make suggestions, change this chord to that, or little things, the run going down into the bridge for a tune or something like that.
Uh-huh.
He would make recommendations like that. But he's an excellent musician and a wonderful keyboard player. Really good.
That's one of the things that I question when you have a lot of really great musicians that play the same instrument.
Yeah.
How do you decide on Walls and Bridges? What does Ken Asher play? What does Nicky Hopkins play if you got a piano part?
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was more like, oh, just come and play on this tune, Nicky. Would like you to come and play on this tune.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a big scheduled thing or anything. I'm going to have Nicky Hopkins in this tune. I think it was more tongue in cheek, come around. I'd love you to play on this tune, that type of thing.
Okay.
And Kenny Asher would maybe move to organ or something like that, but there was never, I never picked up on any, hurt feelings or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've said the same thing about something like All Things Must Pass. So many great musicians on there.
Yeah.
A lot of different piano players, different drummers. It's like,
yeah.
How do you pick and choose? A lot of it's who's available at the time too.
Oh, yeah.
So getting back to rock and roll, I'm sure that because these are really simple songs, you probably bang through them fairly quickly, like in a few takes.
We did. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on them.
Right.
Like I said, we didn't spend hardly any time rehearsing the tunes up at Morris's. We get together in the morning for like an hour and just run through the tunes and just so that we could remember them, But no, they went down pretty quickly in the studio.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of musicians on the New York sessions for rock and roll? Because LA, I'm sure there were so many, and you could hear it. There's a big difference in my ears between the Spector produced songs and which was John's songs, which were leaner production.
Yeah. The beginning of Stand By Me, that was that big old Southern Jumbo Gibson that I was playing.
Okay.
You just pounding out that rhythm at the top of the tune at the intro. Well, it was basically the same people playing on the rock and roll album, and it just worked out well. Worked out very well.
Do you remember? Because in most cases these are straightforward rock and roll versions, but a song like "Do You Want to Dance" that was done reggae-ish.
Yeah.
When was that decided? Was that all John's idea, or what exactly?
Yeah, pretty much. That was John's idea. I was singing in the background on that with my friend Jim Mason, who came by the studio on "Do You Want to Dance." I think it was Ringo's influence with those kind of Latin rhythms for John,
Huh.
Yeah. I'm surprised Ringo didn't. I never met any of the other Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised they didn't kind of show up occasionally. I mean, the Stones were there almost every night.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when John was in LA, he was there with George and Ringo.
Yeah.
The Ringo album.
Yeah.
Particular, so that happened there.
Yeah.
But not in New York at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rock and roll is a fun album. Slippin' and Slidin', gotta tell you, what a kick-ass version.
Yeah, that's great.
And do you remember from the very beginning, one of my favorite tracks on rock and roll is Bring It On Home to Me and Send Me Some as a medley. Was it always conceived as a medley from the very beginning?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Because those two songs work so well together.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that was a fun album to make because everybody knew the tunes,
Right.
So.
Yeah. And like I said, probably didn't take too much time to get just the right take.
Yeah, we didn't. It wasn't like the Walls and Bridges album. It went much quicker.
Mm-hmm. And also, since once John had the Phil Spector tapes, he had to decide which
Right.
there were going to work, and he
Right.
really wanted to wrap things up on the rock and roll album. If in Jay's book, we even talked about that John wanted to get it over with already.
Phil came by a couple of times.
In New York?
Yeah. He came in one night dressed as a cowboy with buckskin on and chaps and 2 6-guns on his hips and a big cowboy hat.
Uh-huh.
And the next night he came in dressed as a doctor with a white coat and a stethoscope around his neck.
That's what I heard he was doing.
Whacked.
That's what he wore in LA in the sessions when he
Oh, really?
got and shot at the ceiling.
Oh, I didn't hear. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Really?
How did John react to Phil after all the trouble that he caused in holding on to these recordings?
He seemed to be pretty hospitable. I mean, they seemed to be okay. They weren't fighting or anything like that, or I didn't feel any tension between them at all. So Phil just kind of was, he didn't say much. He was just kind of listening,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He didn't get into it. Yeah.
John had a lot of tolerance
He did. He did. Yeah.
to deal with him. The whole story that he held on to these tapes all this time. And
Yeah.
anyway, so why don't we move on to more recently, working once again with Noel Paul Stookey.
Oh yes. We just finished the Faz album.
Right.
It was released February 22nd. And it was interesting the way we did it. I've never made a record like this before. He recorded the guitar tracks and put on a rough vocal and then shipped them down to me. And I went into the studio and I had my son play drums on the album.
Huh.
So he put the drums on, then we shipped the stems back to Maine, where the bass player put his part on from his studio, keyboard player from his studio put parts on. Then we sent it to LA, horn parts. I mean, it was crazy. And it was like, when you're playing ensemble, you're sitting in the same room, you say, hey, on that second verse, don't play that bass lick right there at the beginning of the second verse.
Right.
And done. But no, 1,000 emails back and forth, tons of Zoom meetings. It was a lot of work, man. It was 4 months of that. A lot of work.
It's just been easy to get everybody up in Maine and just do this.
Oh, it would have been a lot easier, but it's right in the middle of COVID. I mean,
Right.
COVID was raging then. So Bob Milstein, who was one of the producers, myself and Jim Mason, my old friend from Florida, who produced tons of people. He produced a lot of Poco albums and Firefall records. He's produced a lot of people. So, but that was a real experience, making a record like that. Bob Milstein is a doctor, so I think he was the one that lit the fuse about doing it this way because of COVID.
Right.
Noel, being as old as he is, he was afraid that he might, come down with COVID. So
Understandable.
yeah.
So he must have a lot of patience himself.
Oh, he does. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you play guitar at all on the album?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I have listened on YouTube because you can hear all the tracks.
Yeah.
And it's really well put together. 20 tracks. You get a lot for your money there.
Yeah, a lot of those were old, the old tracks from live performances and stuff at the end of the album. But it was fun to do. It was fun to do, but it was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went back up to do mixes. There were 4 of us in the studio to do the mixes with the engineer. And everybody has an opinion, of course, so it takes a long time. Sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well,
But I think it's a great album, and he's still singing great and playing great. He's 84 years old.
Yeah. And he's still performing.
He's still performing. Yep.
Got a date in Connecticut in September with Peter Yarrow.
Yeah, I talked to him just a couple of days ago. Yeah.
And I'm very impressed with the variety on this.
Oh yeah, the variety is great.
I especially like the instrumentals a lot.
Yeah.
There's one of them. What is it called? Sweet. It's
the classical piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very classical with strings on it. That's really well done. And we should also explain that Faz is really a term that did Noel come up with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's folk music and jazz.
Right.
Faz.
Now, some of the songs to me I look at as being strictly folk, but there's on here that I definitely hear as jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah. In particular, I wanted to mention what song? This song, Bahia Skies,
Uh-huh.
real jazz feel to it.
Yeah.
Love the piano playing on there. It sounds like a jazz combo in a club, in a small
Yeah,
club.
it does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Little Sweet was the instrumental.
Yeah.
Another instrumental for Mara,
Yeah.
very lovely. There's very nice guitar chords on there, very Latinesque.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Sax playing is great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where I hear more of a jazz feel
Yeah. Yeah.
on something like that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that there's a few covers on here, including
I'll be seeing you.
yeah. You know what
Yeah.
I found interesting, and maybe it's just my ears, but there are arpeggios in there that kind of remind me of Mr. Sandman. I don't know, I don't know if, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing when I'm listening.
Yeah.
And also God Bless the Child is covered.
Yeah.
Real nice version of that.
Yeah.
Who is the woman that sings with Noel on in Reverence? They sound
Oh,
together.
Teresa. Yeah. I have never met her.
Uh-huh.
I've never met her. She did, she put her vocal on, I think in New York
Okay.
or Connecticut, and then shipped it back up. So that was a tough tune to mix because a lot of the vocal phrasing was not really together, So Noel was picking spots where, to lead off and then end up. So it was interesting. It was a lot of work.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's far more complicated this way.
Yeah.
I mean, technology is a great thing, but
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't always make things easier.
No, it does not. It's great when it works, but
You know what I found really interesting is the song Charles Ives.
Oh yeah.
We all know who he is.
Yeah.
We have a Charles Ives Center in Connecticut, where there have been Beale festivals, as a matter of fact.
You do Charles Ives Center in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's in Danbury.
Uh-huh.
And I like how in the lyrics, Noel is saying he was a man who led two lives. This is the time for going for our dreams after 9 to 5s,
Yeah.
which so many people can relate to. You
Yep.
have your 9 to 5 job, and what you do after that is what you really love.
Exactly.
So, and the violin accompaniment, I love a lot on there. And then there are songs on here that he didn't write.
Yeah.
Fun Police is another one
That's a great song.
He kind of sounds like Frank Zappa.
Yeah, a little bit.
Don't you think? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Because when his voice goes deeper.
Yeah.
Like that,
There's a song on there called Lennon'S Toaster.
Right.
Which is a wonderful tune. Noel took it upon himself to change the lyrics. A friend of his wrote the tune.
Okay.
And the song was about, in my opinion, was about his father was an alcoholic, and he wasn't offering any solutions to the problem. So he was just stating how he grew up as a kid.
Uh-huh.
And Noel was the one that offered the solutions to the redemption and stuff like that at the end of the tune, which was nice. And he was worried that the guy was not going to like the changes that he made to the tune, but he loves them. So all is well.
It's a great story in that song.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about, in case people are interested, sometimes with this toaster, the toast can come out light or
Dark. Yeah.
dark or whatever. That's like a metaphor for not everything in life being perfect the way that you want it to be.
Exactly.
So you can expand on that whole idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just love the whole selection. But sometimes those instrumentals really add a lot. And I really like when there's like a Latin guitar sound in what he's playing there.
Yeah.
And Wonder Why. What a beautiful song. There's
Yeah.
flamenco guitar on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great album. And it's, it covers all the bases of his career when you think about it. All of the interest in music that he has. It's all there.
Right.
You know?
And it shows the growth in him as an artist.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think he has another album in him.
Yeah.
I think we might be doing this again. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to see him with Peter.
Yeah.
And I hope the two of them continue to do more shows. I treasure my memories of Peter, Paul, and Mary, and just,
Right.
I say this all the time. It's part of my DNA.
Yeah.
They mean so much to me, those three.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always loved even individually, I love their voices.
Oh, yeah.
Because Paul's got such a rich voice.
Yeah.
And a warmth to it.
Yeah. A lot of warmth to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And my wife, who's a big, she studies voice and harmony.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she's pointed out to me when I've seen footage of Peter, Paul, and Mary, how they know when a certain person knows to back away from the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There isn't one person that's dominating everything, and it really blends together. There's such experts at doing that.
Oh, yeah.
So
working the microphone is really very important, especially in a group like that.
Yeah.
I mean, because basically, they were playing the guitars, but basically it was the three voices,
Yeah.
That was the show. So
any one of the three of them as lead vocals were great.
yeah. 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 So when are they playing in Connecticut?
They're playing at the Ridgefield Playhouse in Ridgefield. And that should be, I think I wrote it down here, September 16th.
Ah.
Okay. So, and that's a great place to play. The sound quality there and the mix at the Ridgefield Playhouse has always been great.
Uh-huh.
I've seen many a show there. I know it's a favorite, if this matters to you, to Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
He loves that venue. So I've been to a lot of shows there at Ridgefield. And, having been a Connecticut resident since 2001, I know that Peter has lived here. I know Mary used to live here.
Mary lives in Connecticut, yeah.
Yeah, I visited her gravesite, they mean so much to me, all three of them. So I'm certainly glad that you're still working with him. And
oh yeah, I am too. It's great. I haven't seen Peter in a while. I was at Mary's memorial in New York City, and that was quite an event.
I'm sure.
Yeah, this kid sitting in the front pew of the church with a plaid shirt on stands up and he says, "Come on, Grandpa, let's get up and do our thing." It was Pete Seeger. It's Pete Seeger's grandson. It was just very touching, very, very touching. John Kerry was there, Bill Clinton. It was very, very moving. And Judy Collins ended with Amazing Grace, and just, there were like 5,000 people in the church. I've never seen the church this big, huge.
Right.
So I've known them, I've had a long relationship with Noel and Betty and his family, and with Mary. Mary used to come up to my house here in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
I've just recently moved in the last year and a half. My wife passed away 3 years ago.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was rambling around in a 4,500 square foot house, so I needed to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this very famous writer bought it, and she wrote Brokeback Mountain.
Oh wow!
Yeah, she wrote Shipping News, and she's had like 12 #1 bestsellers. And she's ruining my old house.
He needs that much space to think.
Yeah, right.
Ideas.
Right.
And I'm sure that the landscape around there is beautiful.
Yeah.
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 No, my family, especially my wife and I, do a lot of traveling, and we need to spend a lot more time in New Hampshire and Vermont in particular. So, yeah. But this has been great talking with you here.
Well, thanks, and good to talk to you.
glad to learn all these memories that you have of working with John. And
Yeah,
so glad to see that you're working with Noel still after all these years, and that
yeah,
friendship has stayed, and with Peter,
Yeah.
all these years. So
yeah. It's been a lot of fun all my life. I've had fun with music. It's been very, very interesting. So,
I didn't mention you formed a trio as well.
right.
We didn't even get around to talking about that. You want to just briefly mention that?
Yeah, we did 2 albums, a group called Mottau, Drew and Clark,
Mhm.
and Bob Drew, the percussionist and the harmonica player and singer, passed away last November. So, and my friend Jimmy Clark, who was the bass player, he's kind of down and out. He needs a hip surgery, and he's been suffering for a while. So once that clears up, then we'll probably get back together again. But I've pretty much been on hiatus since then.
Understandable.
Yeah, yeah.
Old
It's weird. Old age. There you go, man. You've said it right there.
age
Old age.
is not fun.
No, it's not. It's not. Well, listen, it's been great talking to you, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining me here and for sharing all these memories. And I hope if I'm in the New Hampshire area near you, pay you a
Oh,
visit.
that'd be great. Now you'll send me the link.
I definitely will. And in the description box, there will be links if you want to order Faz, Noel
Okay.
Paul's new album, the
Right.
albums with the trios.
Right.
Yeah, and it'll be up on YouTube before you know it.
Great.
And I'll send you the link for that. Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Ed. And
Okay.
peace and love. And thanks to all of you for watching.
Okay. Take care.